Hello everyone, and welcome to another Middlemen Commons film review. Today we're going to be doing Kung Fu Panda 2. Isn't that right, George?
No.
Well, okay then. Now, people who know me, and people who watched the last video, know how much I enjoyed the first Kung Fu Panda. I found it funny, charming, gorgeous to look at. So what did I think of the sequel? See, I don't just think it's better than the first one. In my honest opinion, I think it's one of the greatest sequels ever made. So let's dive into Kung Fu Panda 2, which is now directed by Jennifer Yu Nelson and Guillermo del Toro, who I think has a massive influence on story elements in this film, mainly because the film is a lot darker than the first one. I'll try and point out where I think his influence has kind of seeped in as we go along. Okay, let's start with the plot. Po has now fulfilled his dreams of being the Dragon Warrior, and along with his friends and comrades, the Furious Five, he now defends the Valley of Peace against whatever may attack it. One day, while defending innocent villagers from a bandit attack, Po is distracted by a vision from his past. So there's that plot. That's already a plot in the film, that Po is trying to discover who he is. But besides that, we also have a new villain, Lord Shen, voiced by Gary Oldman. He's a megalomaniac peacock who wants to rule China, and he's connected to Po's past and why he ended up being adopted by Mr. Ping. So the plot of the film is basically Po trying to find out who he is, but also trying to defend China against Lord Shen with the Furious Five. One thing I really like about the plot of this film, besides everything else, is that all the characters have actually changed since the first film because of the first film. Like, Shifu is much calmer and kinder. His limp is a lot less severe, which I think is to show that his limp was psychosomatic, because it was more to do with the pain of losing Tai Lung, who was his son, rather than any actual physical injury. And also he wears kind of the robe that Oogway wore in the first film, showing that he's gained inner peace and he's completely changed as a character. The five are now all friends with Po, and they respect him as well. They also fight with him, not like fight against him, they fight with him several times through the film, showing that they've learned how to work together. And I think the most obvious out of all of these characters that's changed is Tigress, because an example that I can give is at the beginning of the film when we're reintroduced to the Five and Po's eating a load of bean buns, and before she would have been disgusted by that, but she encourages it, and it's just a small thing that shows how much this character has changed in the time that she's known Po. Po himself hasn't really changed. He's just as fanboyish and as enthusiastic as ever, but he seems to have gained a kind of a confidence about him, and he seems a lot more self-assured in his being, if you know what I mean. And he's sort of come out of his shell and become the leader of the Furious Five in a way. He's not the official leader, as Jack Black described in the interview, because the dynamic between them all is basically like a dysfunctional family, and Po's the annoying kid brother they're all embarrassed from. And Tigress is still the leader, but Po, as seen throughout multiple times throughout the film, does give them orders, and they respect his opinion enough to follow him. That's kind of all the characters. That's what I mean by all the characters have changed. I do like that, and even small things like the way their body language tells a lot about how they've changed. Something interesting about Po's true parentage, that it was actually hinted at in the first film when he's talking to Mr. Ping about, when he says, sometimes I think you're not really my dad, and Mr. Ping has that look like, I'm not, you dick. But that it's interesting that they decided to expand upon such a small point in the film. I've talked about the voice acting. To be honest, I think it's better than it is in the first film. Not to say that the first film was bad, as I said in that review, which you can click here. It was really strong, but here I think it's, well, just to elaborate, Jack Black's performance in this film is the best I think he's ever been in any film. Shoot me. I think Dustin Hoffman gives a really, really good performance as well, one of his strongest. Angelina Jolie gives a really strong performance in this and gives Tigress a lot more depth. But to be honest, out of all of them, I think the strongest person is Gary Oldman, who, in his gallery of Oldman villains, because as people know, Gary Oldman's well known for playing villains like Dracula, those kind of characters, and Drex from, no sorry, is it Drex or Drexel from True Romance, something like that. Shen is easily my favourite Gary Oldman villain. He just completely owns it. He really does. Like, I don't know if Gary Oldman's ever done a comedy film. He might have. I'm not really familiar with it though. But his
timing and the way he says the funny lines of dialogue is fucking perfect. And he's really sinister, and he's actually quite an intimidating villain, which is interesting because physically he's not a good opponent, as good as an opponent as Tai Lung. Shen's more of a kind of a mental antagonist, both literally and metaphorically. He really does provide a challenge for Poe in this film, and it's his use of cannons is very. I thought it was a genius kind of thing. Like, cannons are so kind of, for the time period, they're so kind of, they're advanced in for what technology's like in the film, but they still fit in perfectly. And what's interesting about the cannons is they don't look or sound threatening, and I think from what I've seen, that was a conscious choice. So they wouldn't look. They can cause damage as is shown, but they can't. They're not supposed to frighten children, if you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And what, for me, the scene that elevates Shen into true greatness in terms of a villain, because at the beginning he's villainous and he does evil things, he's horrible and everything, but the thing that truly makes him a great villain to me is the scene when we see him basically kill Poe's race. That, when I first watched that, I totally didn't expect that, and it's such a change in tone, but I still think it's keeping faithful to the. What I mean is it's not like that leap in tone. I think isn't betraying what the film's going for. I think, and that's an influence from Del Toro. A lot of his films have that kind of dark twist to them, but that really, I'm surprised this wasn't a 12, to be honest, 12 or 15, because the use of genocide and, you know, like that kind of theme, it's just like, that was kind of unheard of to me, and it made me really, really appreciate the film and for having the balls to tackle something like that. And that scene, I'm a man, I'm nearly a full-grown adult. I will admit, hand on heart, that the scene where Poe finds out what happened to his parents made me cry
multiple times. Shut
your face. Get back to your Woman's Weekly. I feel thematically that this film is a natural progression from the first film, and though, like I said, the themes of genocide and that, it really does make this film elevate, for me, into my favourite film, was the fact that it could move so naturally you know, the first film doesn't really have anything as dark. It has stuff about kind of losing, you like, the darkest thing in that film was the Shifu losing Tai Lung thing, but that's nothing compared to the genocide theme in this. And it really, for me, I felt like doing it intelligently and respectfully of the first film was done really, really well, and I really respect the DreamWorks for doing that. Just want to go back to the voice acting quick. One person I didn't mention was James Hong, who it gives one of the most heartfelt performances I've seen in an animated film for Mr. Ping. The scenes where he's with Poe are just like really touching, especially the last scene, which, again, that scene made me tear up a bit. It is something sublime and something unreal. How the voice acting and everything can make me, you know. But at the end of the day, it's a cartoon panda who learns kung fu. Why would I get upset at that? It's just the power of the voice acting, the power of the writing and the story that drew me into it. Now I'm going to go on to the animation. Like I said about the story, the animation is a great kind of evolution from the first film. The models are actually a bit different, which is a nice touch. Like, Poe isn't as large, and there's a lot more fur detail on display, which the attention to detail of the model is actually brought up by Mr. Ping. He says that Poe doesn't look as large, which is a really nice touch. And overall, the animations are more colourful. We see a wider variety of different locations, like the snowy mountains, the desert, in that montage where they're travelling to Gongmen. And Gongmen, I don't want to sound a bit weird here, but Gongmen looks way more of an oriental background than the Valley of Peace ever did. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the crew actually went to China and looked at pandas. They looked at these villages, they looked at places they wanted to put into the film, and took notes, basically. That's something I want to go back to at theming again, talking about locations. The use of a different location, such as Gongmen, I think is interesting, because it's about taking Poe, the Five, out of their comfort zone and putting them into somewhere where they've never been, presumably, and really putting them out of their comfort zone. I really think it brings that it really makes it makes the characters uncomfortable, and it's also like the audience is kind of doesn't really know what to expect, because this place is completely unfamiliar to both the audience, because you don't really hear about it all until this film, and the characters. Now, but the actual set design I think is stunning in this film. The tower looks amazing. That tower falling over a bit, well, it looks incredible, especially in a Blu-ray copy, which you saw me hold up earlier. If you can get a Blu-ray copy of that, watch that scene and see how much detail is put into that and how good it actually looks. The final scene, the final action scene, the water effects are incredible. Just everything in this film just looks great to me. It's colourful, it's creative, everything looks fresh, everything looks really great. Going back to, still going on about the animation, I think you can also see Del Toro's influence in the Panda village scene. Like the use of shadow and like the cold kind of dour atmosphere of it all. It really just kind of reminds me a lot of Pan's Labyrinth. Not quite as extreme as Pan's Labyrinth, but it reminds me a lot of that. I want to move on to my final point, the score, done again by Hans Zimmer and John Powell. I'm just going to be blunt here. It's my favourite film score of all time. It sounds great. It does reuse themes from the first film, but I honestly think it expands upon them, and like it improves them sometimes. And it just, I can't describe it enough in words how great the score actually is, but I can do it in a nearly 2-hour long video, so if you want to see my review of the Kung Fu Panda 2 soundtrack with George, click here. My favourite tracks are My Fist Hungers for Justice, Save Kung Fu, More Cannons. So it's basically the whole score. I can't really cherry pick tracks, they're all pretty great, but My Fist Hungers for Justice is my favourite piece of film music ever composed for anything, ever! So in conclusion, I think Kung Fu Panda 2 is just astounding in how much it improves over the first one, which is already a pretty great film anyway, in terms of scope, animation, voice acting, story, tone. All of this was improved. Oh, and the score. All of this was improved, and I just feel like, how are they going to top it? How are they going to beat this for Kung Fu Panda 3, which I am very much looking forward to. I can't really, if this video hadn't swayed you enough into watching it, just watch it. You know, like what? At the end of the day, if you don't like it, all you've done is you've spent about an hour and a half of your life watching something that looks great. You know, if for me, it just doesn't factor in that someone couldn't like it, because that's how much I love the film. It's like the Marvel films. How can you not like them? So that's what I'm going to say. In conclusion, just go watch the film because it is fantastic. Watch the first one, obviously, first. What you could do is buy the Blu-ray thing that I bought for George, which he still hasn't watched yet.
I have watched it a couple
of times. No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
And
don't be a dick.
So that's it for the Kung Fu Panda reviews. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope they swayed you enough into watching this fantastic film series. But we're not done for film reviews. Next time I'll be reviewing these. All of the Marvel films, apart from Iron Man 3, because I haven't got a DVD of it.
I haven't bought it yet. Carry on.
How's Women's Weekly? It's good.
It's thrilling.
It's good.
Fucking thrilling.
Good. Next time next time, fucking prick. Next time we'll be reviewing all the Marvel films.
Breast cancer update.
Oh my god. So we do this. Next time we're reviewing. Oh shit. Next time I'll be reviewing the Marvel films, starting with Iron Man and leading all the way up to Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and everything after that. Well, in case I get up to it. But every new one that comes out, I will be reviewing it. So I'll see you next time for Iron Man. Of your Batman socks review.
This looks really weird. Tight thighs, tight thighs.
It's a safe word. Here we go. Oh.
I've got a second of that.
And meanwhile, with a massive punch, Titus broke her own hymen. Please don't put that in the outtakes. With one claw, Poe managed to break his own hymen. Right up the arse.
No, we really see what his fist hungers for.
Oh, that's got to go in.
I'm impressed myself. Right.
My fist hungers for hymen.
Go back to Woman's Weekly.
The less popular sequel to Secrets of the Masters.
Secrets of the Masters. What didn't Shifu tell Poe?
Some new character, the Snoo.